Hello everybody, Darren Cross here. This is the assignment video for the communication paper. We've had the chapter talking about communication and now we're going to do a paper about it, all right? So again, I want you to use this template exactly how this is. Don't mess with anything. Put your name here, put the date here, leave all of this stuff the same. Leave this heading here, and then just follow the instructions that I'm talking about, right? So the point of the communication paper is that you're going to identify a problem that you've had or seen or witnessed in an organization. It doesn't have to be your job. It could be like if you were, it could be at your job, but it could be something that happened in class, or if it's on a sports team that you saw, or even if you were doing a project or anything like that. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the communication aspect of that problem. Okay, so we're actually going to look at a problem, and then we're going to look at it from a communication perspective. Your goal is to find a problem that you think happened as a result of poor communication. Okay, and as you go through this paper, the first thing we're going to do here is we are going to introduce this whole paper, right? There's going to be two parts of this. The first thing is introducing the topic in general, right? Whenever you're doing a paper, you're going to start each section really by introducing what that section is about. But here we're going to be talking about what the paper is about. So you're going to say communication is, define communication. Then in one sentence, I want to really emphasize this because what I noticed, what plagued you guys in a lot of the times with the writing in that first paper was that you just started talking about too much stuff. So I'm keeping you limited to talking about what we're talking about, right? So you want to define communication. Then you want to say the value of communication, right? Don't elaborate or give examples or anything like that. Just say the value of it. So you can say communication is XYZ. The value of communication is that it can help companies to, whatever, this, that, or whatever, right? Then you can say in one sentence, the types of problems that could arise as a result of communication could be this, that, or the other, right? And then you transition by noting that you will discuss the problem from a communication perspective, right? So you'll say the purpose of this paper is to discuss a problem from a communication perspective or something like that. Then in the second paragraph, you describe the problem, right? So talk about the problem that you've seen in an organization. Start by describing the problem just in one sentence. One time we were trying to get a project done and we missed the deadline. That's it. That's the problem. Now you want to say why you think this is actually a communication problem. And then, I should have put it here, but then you should say something like, following is a discussion of this problem of this specific problem from a communication perspective, okay? Now here's the thing, two paragraphs, 3 to 5 sentences each. Okay, 3 to 5 sentences for each one of these paragraphs. Not 7, 8, 9 sentences, 3 to 5 for each of these. No more than 2. This says 1. I'm going to change that by the time you see it, but it should say 2. I took this template from the other paper that we did, but this will say 2 by the time you see it. Then you want to go into the background of the problem itself. So you're going to discuss the actual details of the problem. You see here, we didn't discuss the details of the problem. You just said what the problem was. Don't go into the details in the intro. That's what this is for, right? So the background is where you're going to talk about the details of the problem. Who were the players? Who were the people involved in the problem? What is the context of the problem? So what goal were you trying to reach? What was the formal communication structure? So who was supposed to talk to who and all that stuff? Then, did the people actually adhere to that formal structure? What was the consequence? What was the negative outcome? Make sure the outcome is not actually that you're judging the process. So don't say the consequence was that my manager sucked. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying what is the actual thing that showed up as a negative thing that you guys didn't like, right? That everybody didn't like. So instead of saying the problem was bad communication, you want to say something like, we didn't meet our goal. So we were supposed to get this project out in 3 days and we did not get the project out. Or, we were supposed to hit our sales figures for the quarter and we didn't hit our sales figures. Okay. But the thing is, it has to be focused on a communication issue. I'm not talking about just regular problems. I'm talking about problems that happen as a result of communication issues. Now, this should be no more than 2 paragraphs. So 3 to 5 sentences each. So another 2 paragraphs here. Then you go into the analysis. Okay? So start with, you want to, again, introduce this, right? So you want to introduce the section. So you're going to dig into the problem and start with an introductory paragraph, right? So you're going to say, talk about the communication process a little bit more in depth. So describe that process that your book describes. Then briefly note, don't discuss, but briefly note a breakdown in the process. So if information is sent from here to there, there's a message that goes from a sender to a receiver, then you can say the problem is that the message was not communicated clearly, or the people didn't hear them. They heard this, right? They heard something other than what was supposed to be communicated. But you want to keep this 1 paragraph, 3, 5 sentences. Okay? So you want to say what the breakdown in the process was, and then you want to list here at least 2 other factors, communication factors that contributed to the problem. Okay? So then you're going to discuss the process. This is where you go more into detail, right? So talk about the details of the breakdown. So you want to answer these kind of questions. Who was the sender of the message? What was the intended message supposed to be? Who was the intended receiver? And then what message do you think the receiver actually received? Then you can go into, if you go and look at the barriers to communication, that's what you're going to hone in on here, right? So in this section, you're going to describe the first factor that you think may have contributed to the breakdown that led to that problem. And those factors could be things like an improper channel. So they chose the wrong channel, right? So they emailed when it should have been face-to-face communication, or maybe the message wasn't right, or any of those barriers that you see. So if you go into the barriers, you'll see all kinds of things that could break down that process. And here's an example. And here's how you want to do it. This is how you want a paragraph to look. Misunderstanding may have contributed to the problem. Manager X said this, but the employee thought that she said something else. And you could say, you want to go into detail, right? So Manager X used email, or Manager X had a meeting or did a presentation. And then go into the reason for the misunderstanding. So you could say, the problem is that the misunderstanding happened because, they used email, but it was a rich discussion that required you to be present to have, or that there was interference or noise, or that there was a breakdown in, a language breakdown or something like that, right? And you're going to do the same thing for factor 1 and for factor 2. So you're going to do the same exact thing in both of these. Now, I want you to keep this super, super simple. I think that you can do each of these sections in no more than 2 paragraphs, 3 to 5 sentences each. And then once you cover those 2 factors, again, focus on the barriers of communication, right? Once you get done with that, you want to go to the conclusion. You're going to start with a paragraph that actually recaps the major points of the paper. So talk about the problem again, talk about the breakdown, and then mention that these 2 factors could have been, contributors to the problem. Then in a separate paragraph, you're actually going to say how you would deal with that. So if you were a supervisor, how would you address the problem from a communication standpoint, right? So how would you make sure that the communication process works the way that it's supposed to work? When you deal with each of those factors that you talk about, what are some things that you would do differently that would mitigate the impact of those factors? Okay, so this is a real simple thing, and I want you to pay attention to the guidelines. I do not want you to get off track. Talk only about what we're asking for in this area. Don't offer conjecture. Don't offer editorial. Don't start saying businesses really need to get their act together and start to communicate better. This is not what this paper is about. Stay focused on exactly the problem that you're talking about, and don't offer any editorial or opinion about general things that companies or organizations should do. Just talk Specifically, give the facts, right? So when you're talking about the analysis, talk about the situation. Don't offer any opinion about it. Just say what happened. Then you want to say, okay, how did the process break down? Now you can offer a little bit of opinion. I think that this happened because of this barrier to communication. The second one is, I think it happened because of that barrier to communication, and dig in a little bit. Then here, recap, then talk about how you would deal with that. You don't want to say whether or not a company is good or bad, or if companies really piss you off or anything like that. You want to stay super focused on what we're after. Okay? So just get in and get out. Don't elaborate. Don't get off track. The more words you put down on this paper, the more I have to grade, and the more that you're susceptible to mess up. So just be simple and get it done. Okay? If you are struggling or you need a little help with this, reach out to me and I can spend some time helping you get some clarity in your mind and helping you get this stuff down on paper. So reach out to me if you need me. Good luck, everybody.